One of the most robust networks of sensors that regularly collects data below the surface of the ocean, Argo, has a handful of sensors for every patch of ocean the size of Texas. But another powerful tool to explore the open ocean doesn't come in the form you'd expect. It's round, blubbery, and quite large: the elephant seal.
Elephant seals are extremely reliable partners for the research that we do, and that's because they tend to return to the same beaches over and over every single year. That means we can put instruments on them that are really expensive and that we have to retrieve in order to get the data back.
Researchers started monitoring northern elephant seals in the early 1960s after the seals resettled Año Nuevo Island near Santa Cruz, California. Since then, scientists have made more than 350,000 observations on over 50,000 seals. What started as observing their behavior and family history onshore has evolved into understanding the seals' lives at sea. Roxanne Beltran is next in line to lead the more than 50-year-old research program based out of the University of California, Santa Cruz.
They're animals that we care for, that we get to know individually, and that we care a lot about the impact that we're having on them. It's sort of like a high school full of familiar faces, except instead of a yearbook, it's a database. We're able to handle them at the beginning and end of the breeding season and the beginning and end of the molt.
We get these baseline measurements on the seal's size, like girth, and then we also weigh them, and those are great baselines that we can then reference back after a foraging trip to be able and say, okay, so the seal had a great foraging trip. It put on another 100 kilos in the last 2 weeks, or the seal didn't do great.
If the seals are coming back with half the amount of body mass gain, then we know that there's probably half the amount of prey out there. We tend to think of elephant seals as these hugely robust animals. They store a ton of fat on them, and that means they can buffer against these sort of short-term ecosystem changes. What that means is that if the climate change impacts are having big changes for the elephant seals, it's likely an even greater impact on seabirds and whales and other species.
As one of the longest distance migrators, northern elephant seals cover thousands of kilometers during their foraging trips.
I like to call them smart sensors because they're even better than any sort of like autonomous underwater vehicle that you could use, because they have evolved over millions of years these sensory capabilities to bring you right to the ecologically important areas.
Historically, instruments have been mounted onto female elephant seals since they have a higher chance of survival. Despite the risk to equipment, Selma Abdel Rahim instruments male and juvenile seals.
Males, they do spend more time foraging on coastal waters where there are more predators like orcas and great white sharks. And we are trying to understand how individuals develop their foraging strategies that then can translate to that higher mortality risk.
So depending on the research project and the funding source, we can sort of change the characteristics of the animals that we're looking for in order to answer the questions that we have.
Early instruments to observe elephant seals at sea didn't last very long and stored limited amounts of data. Now, instruments are lightweight, allowing multiple sensors to be mounted at the same time.
These tags are a lot smaller and they're a lot more sophisticated. The tags measure everything from seawater temperature to depth to salinity. There's 3D accelerometers, so we can get the orientation of the animal in space. If you think about what it would take for us to go out to sea and collect just the temperature data that these sensors are collecting, we would need these giant ships and so many people to staff them, and just so that you could stick a probe in the water and get a temperature reading. What's amazing is that we can get more continuous coverage without emitting more greenhouse gases and kind of disturbing the environment.
Although scientists can observe sea surface temperature with satellites, measuring below the surface is trickier. Sensors mounted to northern elephant seals between 2014 and 2017 provided a unique view of the blob, the largest and longest marine heat wave on record. The data showed that warm temperatures extended down through the top 500 meters of the ocean, and warming in these parts of the ocean persisted after sea surface temperatures went back to normal. Beyond collecting temperature and salinity data, other sensors can give a glimpse into the elephant seals' lives at sea.
We can also put other sensors like acoustic recorders to measure what they're hearing, what they're listening to out there, if it's whales or if it's ships. You can sort of pick and choose these sensors to put on an individual animal to get this really holistic understanding of not just what the animals are doing, but also what's out there in the open ocean and how the animals are responding to those prey or those predators.
To get a better sense of what these elephant seals are eating and how often, researcher Taiki Adachi attached an accelerometer onto the jaw of an elephant seal and mounted a video camera on their heads.
Jaw accelerometer detects mouth movement, but it doesn't mean that they actually forage prey. So video camera provides a good answer if they actually meet or encounter prey. Before the video camera, the data only we have is stomach content of adult females. And it showed that they foraged on squid, but our video data showed that elephant seals feed on very tiny fish to maintain their large body size.
His work revealed that seals feed between 1,000 to 2,000 times a day, deep diving for their food more than 80% of their time at sea. Another researcher in the lab is observing elephant seal prey through a different technique, sonar tags, which emit sound to scan the surrounding environment.
So in the tag, you can literally see like a small fish or something showing up as a trace coming closer to the seal. And then that trace disappears and we'll see some acceleration movements in the head with one of the accelerometer sensors. And that suggests that the seal captured that prey. With climate change, there's been some theories that the deep water species these seals feed on, like lanternfish and squid, might dive deeper in the water. And if you're an elephant seal, you can only dive so deep. So then you might be losing access to prey resources. So if we can start figuring out kind of where the seal's prey is now, getting a handle on that and kind of developing this baseline monitoring set is something that's really important.
In addition to mounted instruments, researchers like Florencia Vilches use other techniques to better understand the seal's environment. Their whiskers.
We pull a whisker on their whisker bed, we track that follicle, and we pull that whisker that grew throughout that long foraging trip.
What the elephant seal feeds on is reflected in the isotope ratio of their whiskers about a week after they eat. A higher nitrogen-15 value means the seals are likely feeding on prey higher on the food chain.
I take subsamples of that whisker every 3 millimeters, and that sample, which is teeny tiny, like as big as a grain of salt, for each whisker segment, I'm able to assign a date and a coordinate so I can describe what's the isotopic signature where that particular segment has been built. If you have enough data, as it's our case, we're able to reconstruct what areas of the ocean are relevant to these animals.
Combining all these modes of observations allow Roxanne and her team to expand off the work of her predecessors, Bernie LaBeouf and Dan Costa.
Being able to have new sensors opens up a million opportunities to ask retroactive questions using data that already exists. Dan Costa and his team have been using time depth recorders since 2004, but those dive data are every 4 seconds, which means that there's things in those dive records that we can't interpret. If we put out, let's say, a new acoustic recorder with a new jaw accelerometer and we get information about what the movement pattern looks like when a seal encounters a killer whale or a white shark predator, and we see that that inversion is probably a predator evasion maneuver, then we can look for those in 700 records of adult females.
As more of this environmental data is paired with the seal's behavior, researchers can get a better sense of how climate change impacts elephant seals and beyond.
We talk about this idea of ecosystem sentinels all the time. Canary in a coal mine, right? Like, let's try to figure out a species that indicates some sort of change in the ocean. So in good oceanographic years, the moms gain a lot of mass, they produce larger pups, the pups survive and go on to reproduce lots of pups of their own. And so there's this really clear link between water temperature and the productivity of the water temperature and maternal mass gain and offspring quality. We've been able to show that elephant seals are a really good ecosystem sentinel, and as the climate continues to change, the elephant seal population dynamics are likely to change as well.